My fiancé Jonathan has been leading troops to suppress bandits and has not returned yet. The officers asked me to make meritorious service, but I pleaded for him. I had just removed the shell from my leg, but I refused their request. I even limped to the archives and tore up the marriage application. After all, as soon as Jonathan heard First Love Ellie's call for help on the radio, he immediately sent troops to help and even flashed the headlights of the military jeep to come for her. This exposed my coordinates as a scout. It doesn't matter if the mission is delayed for an hour. Comrade Ellie's safety must be guaranteed. Since he thinks it doesn't matter if the mission is delayed, why should I plead for him? Sister-in-law, you are the only one who has returned from the soldiers led by Battalion Commander Jonathan. The regiment has urged us 3 times. I have already made a briefing on the day I delivered the key information. The wound left by the shell on my leg sent a tearing pain, reminding me of everything I just experienced. Could it be that it was because the regiment commander commended me, so he wanted me to plead for Battalion Commander Jonathan? The officer blushed when he was choked by me. Battalion Commander, he is your fiancé. He must have failed in this operation in order to save you. The loss is not small. Someone has to take responsibility, not to mention that the timing of the encirclement was based on the reconnaissance intelligence you provided before. If there was no deviation, the operation would have started early this morning. My reconnaissance report was submitted to the regiment yesterday afternoon, more than 10 hours in advance. If there was a problem with the intelligence, why did Jonathan still act according to the original plan? He is the commander of the 2nd Battalion. He is the commander-in-chief. My voice trembled slightly because of anger and pain, but every word was clear and rang out in the silent ward. Everyone around was silent and looked at each other. But the battalion commander only received your distress signal. He received Ellie's call for help. It was he who, for that woman, disregarded the overall situation and arbitrarily mobilized troops, exposing our hidden position. I barely lifted my injured leg, and the political cadres stopped it in time. Captain Jonathan has not returned to the team yet. We will not make a judgment based on your one-sided statement. I know that your wedding date with Captain Jonathan was postponed because of this bandit suppression operation. Captain Jonathan said that you were dissatisfied with the operation, but husband and wife are one. At this time, you should stand up and share some of his burden. Go to the regiment to explain it and admit your mistake. It will be good for everyone if you take part of this responsibility. The fiancé and husband and wife are one. Jonathan would still say that he was dissatisfied with me behind my back. I was so angry that I almost laughed. When Ellie and Jonathan were being affectionate in front of him, why didn't they think that Jonathan and I were husband and wife? Why didn't they think that I would be dissatisfied? On the contrary, when they needed to take responsibility, I became the fiancé who could not escape the blame. I had just torn up my marriage application with my own hands. I will not take the responsibility for him. The political cadre's face was livid. Comrade Jessica, you are too willful. Do you know what your actions mean? How embarrassed will this be for Battalion Commander Jonathan? How will the entire battalion look at him and at you? You are also destroying your own reputation by doing this. Reputation is not worth mentioning compared to the punishment for the failure of bandit suppression. There is no need to say anything more. I have submitted the report on this bandit suppression operation to the regiment headquarters. There is no room for intercession. Instead of pestering me, you might as well go and see for yourself how Jonathan is doing. The ward finally became quiet. At this moment, the guard rushed in to report that Battalion Commander Jonathan had returned to the team and was on the way to the regiment headquarters to report. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The look he gave me was actually a bit of gloating, as if to say, Jonathan is back, you're in trouble. I remembered the serious and cautious expression on my face when I reported to the regiment commander with injuries. Comrade Jessica, you must ensure that your report is objective and accurate, and every word must stand up to scrutiny. If the inspection team comes to investigate and finds any untruths in your report or deliberate concealment, you'll be brought to a military court. This report is my proof of innocence, but it may also be a sword hanging over my head. If Jonathan confuses right and wrong, and if those so-called witnesses point to me, it may also push me into an irretrievable situation. Don't blame me for suspecting Jonathan would perjure himself. Before yesterday, I had never thought that he would decide to delay the encirclement and suppression operation in order to save Ellie. The operation began in the early morning of this morning in the heavy rain. All the soldiers of the 2nd Battalion were encircling according to the plan, and as a scout, I held the encrypted terrain map tightly, ready to cross the minefield. According to the deployment, Jonathan should lead the team to eliminate the firing point on Hill No. For at 4 o'clock in the morning. We all know the importance of this encirclement and suppression operation. Once successful, we can completely eliminate the banditry in this area. Suddenly, Ellie's voice came from the radio. Jonathan, save me. The ART troops convoy was ambushed. Her voice was crying. I was so scared. My heart sank suddenly because the coordinates of the ART troops' attack overlapped with my retreat route. Zhang Hong, give me your radio. Jonathan's voice was calm with a hint of unquestionable authority. No. I tightly grasped the communication equipment. The encirclement and suppression plan is about to begin. You can't. Zhang Hong, now is not the time to be jealous. Comrade Ellie is in danger. He interrupted me with a sarcastic smile on his lips. Since Comrade Ellie came, you have been wrong. The safety of the masses is far more important than your little thoughts of love. Jonathan, you are wrong. The encirclement and suppression operation has been deployed for more than a year. How can you decide to give priority to Ellie just because she asked for help? The rain slid down my cheeks. I couldn't tell whether it was rain or tears. Seeing that I was reluctant to hand over the radio equipment, Jonathan became anxious, and his tone became more and more biting. You knew very well that if Comrade Ellie hadn't been selected for the ART troop, I would never choose you as a second choice. You should be content that you can reach my height. I didn't expect that you would disregard her safety out of jealousy. Don't forget that our marriage application has not yet reached the stamping process. I can withdraw it at any time. It had been more than half a year since the marriage application was submitted, and it hasn't been stamped yet. That's right. After all, half a year ago, Ellie came to the camp in the name of a visit from the ART troop. I'm afraid Jonathan deliberately suppressed the process and didn't go through it. First love is back. How could he bear to marry someone else? I felt a dull pain in my heart. With the common belief of defending our country, we had completed so many difficult tasks together. We left so many footprints fighting side by side on this border. It turns out that I can't resist Ellie after all. She bent her waist and smiled at him. Jonathan directly grabbed the radio equipment from my hand. Jessica, Ellie must not get into trouble, and I won't let her get into trouble either. At most 1 hour, I won't delay the opportunity for encirclement and suppression. You wait for my signal. I took off the pocket watch hanging on my chest. It was a token of love he gave me. I remembered he once said that this was the most precious relic left to him by his grandfather. Since you insist on saving her, I handed the pocket watch to him with a calm voice without a trace of emotion. Let's end our engagement here. You're being unreasonable again. He stuffed the pocket watch into his pocket and patted my shoulder perfunctorily. He said, I'll explain it to you after I rescue Ellie. Looking at his back as he turned and left without hesitation, I suddenly understood that in his heart, I had never been the most important person. The rain was getting heavier and heavier. I clenched the topographic map in my hand and continued to move forward in the dark as planned. On the opposite cliff, the headlights of the military jeep cut through the rain and flashed 3 times in a row. My heart skipped a beat. 3 long flashes. This was one of the backup signals we had practiced before, indicating that the passage was safe and we could pass quickly. It was Jonathan. He was really waiting for me. He still had this operation in mind. I no longer hesitated, quickened my pace, and rushed to the open area. The terrain here was dangerous, with steep cliffs on both sides. Once discovered, there would be nowhere to hide. Bang! A gunshot tore through the rainy night. Severe pain instantly came from my right leg, and my body lost balance. I fell uncontrollably into the darkness. Just before I lost consciousness, I used my last bit of strength to look up at the top of the cliff. Under the dazzling headlights of the jeep, a tall figure was hugging a petite woman tightly. I would never mistake that silhouette. It was Jonathan and Ellie. The headlights reflected his profile as he lowered his head to comfort her. That gentle expression was something I had never seen before. It turned out that the 3 flashes were not a signal to me at all. They were him guiding Ellie in the direction and telling her that it was safe over there. He used the signal we agreed on to lead me into the enemy's ambush. My heart seemed to be pierced by the bullets at the same time and was completely shattered. Fortunately, I rolled down a distance and got stuck between some slippery rocks. Help! I held on to the faint hope that maybe he was just confused for a moment and that he would hear my voice and come to save me. Brother Jonathan, there seems to be a voice over there. I'm so scared. Don't be afraid. I'll take you away. The voice was getting farther and farther away, and the light of the headlights disappeared. My cries for help were drowned in the rain. Despair almost swallowed me up. I struggled to get up. The severe pain in my right leg made my vision black. No, I couldn't die here. I gritted my teeth, tore off my sleeves, and tightened my thighs to try to stop the bleeding. Just as I was groping for the rocks around me, trying to find a support point, my fingers touched a hard little object. In the faint light from the sky, I saw that it was a battery fragment. The dark green shell had a few blurry letters on it. This model was a new type of radio-specific battery distributed internally by our military art troop. Why did it appear here? My eyes fell on the muddy ground beside me that had been washed by rain. There was a clear shoe print there. The pattern was special. I had seen it on the soles of Ellie's training shoes. She said it was specially made for anti-slip performance on stage. A terrible idea exploded in my mind. The radio station battery specially made for dance shoes during the attack on the Consolation performance. I remembered that a few days ago, when I went to deliver something to Ellie that Jonathan asked me to pass on, I accidentally caught a glimpse of her makeup box at the bedside. In the open interlayer, there seemed to be a small black cylinder similar to a microfilm that flashed by. I didn't pay much attention at the time. Thinking about it now, cold sweat instantly soaked my back. The situation was critical. Jonathan was deceived by her. Not only might he have leaked the encirclement and suppression plan, but he might even. I must send this intelligence out immediately, right away. However, the radio equipment was taken away by Jonathan. Despair once again wrapped around my heart like a cold vine. I forced myself to calm down. I was a scout. I was carrying the soldiers of the 2nd Battalion, their faith and hope in suppressing the bandits. I carefully copied the shoe print with a bandage and then held the battery fragment tightly in my palm. These were all evidence. I must survive and bring the truth out. I touched a wooden stick from the ground, propped up my body, and climbed up little by little with my injured leg. Just when I was about to give up, my fingers seemed to touch a cold metal object. It was a broken Vietnamese individual radio. The shell was shattered and the antenna was broken. With trembling hands, I tried to disassemble and reassemble it and debug the channel until I heard the reply from the regiment with a sound of electricity. Red River, confirmed coordinates for. The moment the ward door was kicked open, the sweet and greasy perfume of Ellie mixed with the smell of blood hit me in the face. Comrade Jessica, do you know how much damage your actions have caused to the troops? Jonathan's uniform was stained with mud, and his tone was stern. Ellie deliberately shook her gauze-wrapped fingers in front of Jonathan, and then shook her head aggrievedly. I never thought that the first thing Jonathan did after returning was to question me. Captain Jonathan, what do you mean? If the intelligence you provided was not wrong, we would not have lost so many comrades. There was anger in his voice. Comrade Ellie said that the route map of their art troop was given by you, and that route map led them to take the wrong route. If we hadn't divided our troops to rescue them in time, the consequences would be disastrous. It turned out that Ellie had taken the initiative and turned the tables. Captain Jonathan, I suppressed my anger. It is not clear whether I gave the route map, but don't you think you should explain why it delayed the encirclement time? His face changed, but soon he returned to his righteous look. I was trying to save people. If it wasn't for you, I closed my eyes and wanted to give him a final hand. Captain Jonathan, if I say that Comrade Ellie is lying and even suspected of being an enemy spy, will you believe me? I am willing to swear on the honor of my scout without any falsehood. I deliberately pulled back the quilt to let him see my leg that was covered with blood from the gauze. Jonathan's eyes were full of disappointment and disgust. Jessica, you are just as Ellie said. You will use this self-torture trick to gain my sympathy. I know you are prejudiced against Ellie and have misunderstandings about Ellie and me. But the army has suffered such a great loss, and you are still thinking about jealousy and seeking care through self-torture. Don't you have any collectivist spirit? Misunderstanding, jealousy. Blood rushed to the top of my head. I looked at him, at the weak and innocent Ellie beside him, and I felt dizzy. I have evidence. There is something wrong with Comrade Ellie. Ellie beside him let out a moan at the right time, and her body was shaky, as if she was frightened by my slander. Evidence? Jonathan stepped forward and raised the paper bag in his hand. Battery fragments and shoe prints. You can forge them if you want. Jessica, I didn't expect you to be such a person. At this point, you still want to push the blame onto Ellie. She was a female soldier in the art troupe, unarmed, and almost died in the hands of the enemy. How could you have the heart to slander her? I didn't expect that he actually took the evidence from the regiment. Tears could not help falling. Jonathan, you will regret it. These are not tears of grievance, but anger, despair, and complete giving up on this man whom I once loved deeply. Ellie shrank in his arms and said timidly, Brother Jonathan, don't blame Comrade Jessica. After all, she is just a woman and your fiancé. It's not wrong to want more sympathy. Maybe she didn't mean it. Her hypocritical attitude added fuel to the fire. Jonathan took a deep breath and seemed to have made up his mind. Come on, he ordered the guard next to him. Take Jessica back to the regiment and hand her over to the inspection team. I suspect that she not only made mistakes in the operation, but also... He didn't say the rest of the words, but the suspicion and ruthlessness in his eyes explained everything. He suspected that I was collaborating with the enemy. 2 guards came up and dragged me onto the stretcher regardless of the bleeding wound that needed to be changed. Jonathan carefully protected Ellie. I laughed suddenly, tears streaming down my face. This was the man I loved, the man I desperately wanted to marry. For the sake of another woman, he couldn't wait to force me to admit to a crime that wasn't mine. The stretcher fell to the ground with a dull sound. I was carried into a tent that was temporarily used as an interrogation room. Outside the tent were soldiers from the 2nd Battalion waiting for the result, angrily demanding that the inspection team give me a severe punishment. Comrade Jessica, we are from the Military District Inspection Team. We need your cooperation in the investigation of the failure of this encirclement and suppression operation and your involvement in some of the situations. I endured the severe pain in my legs and took a deep breath. Yes, Chief, I will report truthfully. Before you were sent here, we had received a detailed report. I answered affirmatively. Every word in the report was what I experienced and saw with my own eyes. I closed my eyes and clearly described that nightmare-like experience, word by word, from the discovery of battery fragments and abnormal shoe prints, to the rejection of my attempt to warn Jonathan, to his delay in the encirclement and suppression in order to rescue Ellie, and the snatching of my radio, and finally to the scene I saw before I fell off the cliff. The pain made my forehead sweat, but compared with the physical pain, the dull pain in my heart made me suffocate more. At this moment, the curtain of the tent was suddenly opened, and Jonathan rushed in with Ellie. Reporting to the chief, Jonathan saluted. I have something to say about Comrade Jessica's accusation. She has always misunderstood Ellie. Ellie wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief. Comrades from the inspection team, I don't know why Sister Jessica said that. I was just unlucky and ran into the enemy. The inspection team raised their hands to stop them and turned their eyes to Jonathan. Captain Jonathan, we will listen to your explanation later, but now the report in our hands records in detail the time, place, and every note of your operation. Among them, why did you choose to rescue Ellie first after receiving the distress signal instead of executing the original encirclement and suppression plan, resulting in the loss of the best opportunity, and there is a discrepancy with your previous preliminary report? You need to explain clearly. Jonathan's face turned pale in an instant. He opened his mouth, as if he wanted to defend himself, but he didn't know where to start. Seeing this, Ellie hurriedly rushed to speak. Commander, it was because the enemy's firepower was too strong at that time, and it was all concentrated in the place where our art troop members were trapped. Brother Jonathan had no choice. Oh, Comrade Ellie, according to our understanding, you and Captain Jonathan had other ways of communication to keep in touch at that time, right? And you're sure that the enemy's main firepower was directed at you, not a trap. Ellie's eyes were flustered. I don't know what trap it was. I just know that it was very dangerous at that time. Jonathan looked at Ellie's panic-stricken look and said with his neck stiff, "Report to the commander. The situation is urgent." My judgment may be wrong, but I did adjust the deployment to save people. As for the other contents in Comrade Jessica's report, they are purely her personal conjecture and slander. He was still stubbornly defending her. I looked at their flawed excuses, and there was only a cold desolation in my heart. Just when the atmosphere in the tent was stagnant, a signalman ran in hurriedly, reporting to the commander urgent enemy situation. Scouts found a large number of enemy gatherings in Area No. 7. Their whereabouts are secretive, and they are suspected of having a major conspiracy. Everyone in the tent looked solemn. Area No. 7 was exactly one of the directions I had judged the enemy might move to. Jonathan seemed to have grabbed a life-saving straw and took a step forward. Reporting to the chief, I request to lead the team to Area No. 7 to carry out a reconnaissance mission. To make up for my mistakes, please give me a chance. The officer of the inspection team hesitated for a moment and finally said in a deep voice, "Okay, Comrade Jonathan, I'll give you this chance, but remember, you can only succeed this time and not fail, otherwise you'll be punished for multiple crimes." "Yes, you must complete the mission." Jonathan straightened his chest, turned around, and walked out of the tent quickly without even looking at me and Ellie again. Ellie looked at Jonathan's departing back with complicated eyes, and her fingers unconsciously twisted the corners of her clothes. I lay on the stretcher, listening to the emergency assembly call from outside, but there was no ripple in my heart. He went to scout and make up for his mistakes. It had nothing to do with me. It was just that the enemy was gathering in Area No. 7. Could it be that my previous judgment was correct? Those fragments, those footprints, Ellie's abnormality, all pointed to a bigger conspiracy. If Jonathan went to scout this time, what could he find? I was sent back to the hospital again, but I heard Ellie's voice in the dressing room. "Brother Jonathan has gone to Area 7. You guys quickly notify the boss to transfer." I gritted my teeth and forced myself to get up. I immediately felt a sharp pain in the wound on my right leg, but I didn't care about that. Jonathan was leading the team to Area 7 at the moment, and there was a high possibility that there was a trap there. I held onto the wall and limped to the door. It was already dark outside. In the dim light, I saw Ellie sneaking into the temporary medical tent on the field. I followed her quietly and hid outside the tent. Through the gap, I saw her skillfully dismantling the back panel of the accordion, revealing the radio transmitter inside. My heart almost jumped out of my chest. This was the truth. Ellie was not only a traitor, she was still passing on information to the enemy. I quickly tore off a piece of cloth from the inside of my clothes, wrote a brief message for help with a pencil I carried with me, and stuffed it into the glove box next to the medical tent. This was one of the emergency contact points agreed upon by the communications squad and me. I didn't care about the pain in my leg. I gritted my teeth and followed Ellie, who had already slipped out of the tent. She was obviously not familiar with the terrain, and she stumbled up the mountain in the dark. This area was where I had walked countless times when I was on missions. I knew there was a natural pit ahead, surrounded by thorns. If I calculated it properly, I could lead her there. "Stop." Ellie turned around and saw that it was me, and she breathed a sigh of relief. "Comrade Jessica, it's useless for you to follow me. I'm innocent. I heard everything. You were tipping off the enemy." I deliberately slowed down. "The message you just sent has been intercepted by me." "It's impossible." She screamed and took a few steps back. Right now, I suddenly accelerated and rushed forward. She was frightened by my action and jumped back. Her feet were empty, and she fell directly into the pit. But she grabbed my military uniform in a panic. I fell into the pit with my legs unable to move. The severe pain made my eyes black, but I still grabbed her wrists tightly and tied her up with the rope on my body. I fumbled to grab the small radio transmitter from her hand. This was my only chance. I must pass the message to Jonathan before the enemy moves. "Are you crazy?" Ellie struggled to take back the transmitter. "You don't know how to use it at all." "I'm a scout. I can operate this old-fashioned transmitter with my eyes closed." I quickly adjusted the frequency and started sending the message. Ellie rushed over and tried to snatch the transmitter. In this small space, we wrestled together. Her nails dug deeply into my arm, and my wounds also burst open in the tearing. The blood soon soaked the bandage. But I couldn't care about these. I had to pass the message on, even if it was with my last bit of strength. I held the transmitter tightly, and my fingers tapped on the keyboard quickly. Ellie's nails almost dug into my flesh, but I gritted my teeth and sent it word by word. "Do you think Brother Jonathan will still believe you?" Ellie sneered. "He has never loved you. He will only believe me." I ignored her taunting and continued to focus on sending the message. Suddenly, a familiar response came. It was Jonathan's frequency. "The action is cancelled." Ellie took the opportunity to type a confused reply. My heart sank suddenly. This woman didn't give up. Then I thought of the secret code that Jonathan and I used to use. I only asked him to trust me once for the sake of our past. Number 7, trap, evacuate immediately. Ellie didn't know the meaning of my operation, but she realized the danger and began to exert force to take back the radio. I protected the radio under my body. My wound burst open again. The severe pain made me black out. "You destroyed everything I had," Ellie screamed frantically. "If it weren't for you, I would have taken the money and left." I endured the pain and grabbed her wrist tightly. At this moment, a burst of intensive gunfire came from the distance, followed by a shrill alarm. Ellie's body suddenly froze. I knew that it was the enemy who encountered our troops when they moved ahead of time. "What's going on?" "The time is not right," she muttered to herself, her face pale. I picked up the radio again and wanted to continue to contact Jonathan and tell him the specific location of the enemy, but Ellie suddenly jumped up, snatched the radio, and threw it to the ground. "Don't even think about it." She stomped on the radio frantically. "Since I'm done, you can't have a good life either." I looked at the shattered radio and was anxious. Now I'm trapped here and can't confirm whether the soldiers have left the danger zone. Ellie's eyes were getting crazier and crazier, like a trapped beast. The gunshots in the distance were getting more and more frequent. I could distinguish the sounds of exchange of fire from at least 2 directions, but what worried me most was that the sounds were gradually approaching us. Then, a beam of light from a flashlight suddenly pierced through the darkness, and the muzzle of the gun was pointed at me. "You are a soldier," Ellie screamed in an almost flattering, trembling voice. "She is a scout. She knows your plan. I am an ordinary person. I don't know anything." The enemies obviously understood the meaning of the scout. Their eyes instantly became sharp and greedy, like wolves seeing their prey. At this moment, something strange happened. A more intense burst of gunfire suddenly sounded from the flank, not far away. This time I heard it clearly. It was the sound of our unit's standard rifles, mixed with a few crisp bursts of submachine gun fire. The faces of the enemies on the top of the pit changed drastically, and they looked in the direction of the gunshots with their guns. "Over there, hurry up." A familiar voice rang out in the woods, with an anxious and unquestionable tone of command. It was Jonathan. The enemy, led by him, suddenly raised his gun. The black muzzle of the gun was pointed at me again. My pupils suddenly shrank, and I rolled to the side almost instinctively. Bang! Ellie did not have the instinct of a soldier and was shot. Blood was pouring from her shoulder, her face was pale, and her screams were miserable. Jonathan jumped into the pit with several soldiers. He saw me at a glance, his face full of anxiety and self-blame. He picked me up and his voice trembled. "Jiang Hong, how are you? Where are you injured?" I gritted my teeth and said nothing. The soldiers quickly controlled the situation and tied up several bandits. A soldier simply bandaged the wounds for Ellie and me. Jonathan carried me out of the pit. I saw several soldiers carrying a stretcher with several wounded lying on it. My heart sank suddenly. It seemed that the losses in this operation were not small. Ellie was escorted by 2 soldiers. She was pale, her eyes flickered, and she glanced at Jonathan from time to time. After returning to the camp, I was sent to the military hospital again. Listening to the noisy noises outside, my thoughts were full of thoughts. This incident made me see the true colors of Jonathan and Ellie. Ellie sold out national intelligence for her own benefit, and Jonathan was so easily deceived and used by her that she even put the soldiers in danger. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and tried to calm myself down. Now, I must recover as soon as possible, and then find out everything and give an explanation to the fallen comrades. In the next few days, I've been recovering from my injuries, and Jonathan would come to see me every day, asking about my well-being, and seemed to want me to plead for Ellie. Jiang Hong, I'm sorry, it's my fault, I'm too stupid. On the day of the encirclement and suppression, I actually led the enemy to shoot at you. I really didn't know at the time. If I had known, I would definitely not have. Ellie was probably deceived, too. She has always been kind. He held my hand with a choked voice. I looked at him coldly, without saying a word. I know you hate me now, but please believe me, my feelings for you are real, he continued. I will definitely find out everything and give you an explanation. I have rewritten the marriage application, and we will hold the wedding here then, okay? I sneered. No need. Didn't you say before that, if Ellie didn't go to the art troupe, it wouldn't be my turn to marry you? It's just right. Now she probably can't leave, so you don't have to settle for second best and hold a wedding with your true love. Jonathan was about to say something when a soldier came in and reported to Jonathan. Battalion commander, Ellie has woken up and she wants to see you. Jonathan glanced at me, hesitated, and followed the soldier out. I knew that Ellie would find ways to exonerate herself, and Jonathan, that indecisive man, would probably be deceived by her again. I endured the pain and started to get out of bed to seek justice for myself and for those comrades who died. I immediately went to the inspection team and told them what I had experienced. Ellie wanted to deny it at first. She pointed to her injured shoulder and tearfully accused me of attacking her, trying to use the trick of inflicting pain to gain sympathy and prove my innocence. However, in the face of the ironclad evidence, all her lies seemed pale and powerless. The seized bandit communication equipment clearly recorded her contact information with the bandits, as well as the various intelligence she provided about the Border Defense Regiment. In the end, Ellie was speechless. I had to admit that she was captured by bandits during a performance. She leaked the information about the suppression of bandits in order to save her life. She cried and begged Jonathan to intercede for her for the sake of their past relationship, saying that he had no choice. Jonathan stood aside, his face livid, and said nothing. He knew that he had been deceived and was completely fooled by the woman he loved deeply. The look in his eyes when he looked at me was full of deep regret and pain. During my recovery period, I applied to the regiment commander for a transfer. After all, the climate in the Southwest was not suitable for recovery. The regiment commander approved my transfer letter and also attached a commendation order for me. Comrade Jessica, on behalf of everyone in the Border Defense Regiment, I thank you and am very sorry. The deployment error caused you to have a serious leg injury and you can no longer engage in reconnaissance work. If you have any difficulties in the future, you can come to me. When Jonathan received the news and rushed into the dormitory, I was packing my few luggage. Jessica, what are you going to do? Where are you going? I knew I was wrong. I really knew I was wrong. Can you give me another chance? Let's start over. Comrade Jonathan, do you think it's possible? After you have done this for Ellie? When you left me alone in the trap to die, when you took my radio and cut off my only hope of asking for help, just to save your true love, when you knew I was in danger but still chose to delay the fighter plane, causing the sacrifice of your comrades, do you think there is any possibility between us? Every word I said was like a nail, driving it hard into his heart. His face was pale, his lips trembled, and he could not utter a word of defense. Also, I looked at him. My eyes fell on his chest, where there used to be a pocket watch hanging. I had returned that watch to you on the day of the encirclement and suppression. When you rushed over to pick up Ellie and ignored me, I threw it to you. It was over between us a long time ago. He subconsciously touched his chest, but it was empty. His pupils suddenly contracted and his face lost all color, as if he suddenly remembered something extremely terrible. He rushed out suddenly, as if he was looking for something. Later, I heard that the pocket watch was hit by a stray bullet when he saved Ellie in the chaos of the battle. The watch cover was shattered, and the hands were crooked. It was completely broken. It was something passed down from his grandfather, and was of great significance. He searched the battlefield like crazy and finally found the broken pocket watch in a corner. He held the broken watch, and his whole body looked like he had lost his soul. It took a lot of effort and all his connections to finally invite a master craftsman to carefully repair it. But what's the use? On the day when my injuries improved a little and I got the approval of the organization, I left this place where I was covered with bruises without notifying anyone. I boarded the train back to the north, watching the familiar border scenery outside the window recede little by little. I had no nostalgia in my heart, only relief. I heard that Jonathan rushed to the train station like crazy after hearing the news of my departure. He ran wildly on the platform. In the end, he couldn't catch up with me, nor could he say anything to keep me. What greeted him was not my change of heart, but several serious-looking inspection team members and a pair of cold handcuffs. Comrade Jonathan, according to Ellie's further explanation, investigation, and evidence collection, you are suspected of deliberately delaying the fighter plane for personal reasons during the 10.7 bandit suppression operation, causing heavy losses to our side. Please cooperate with the investigation. Perhaps at this moment, he really understood that he had lost more than just me, but also his honor and future as a soldier. He paid the most painful price for his indecision and stupidity. And all of this has nothing to do with me. I was assigned to a new unit when I returned to the north. The familiar environment and familiar local accent finally relaxed my nerves that had been tense for a long time. Just when I thought I could completely get rid of the past, a package from the border was delivered to me. I opened the package, and inside lay a silver pocket watch that had been restored to its original state. The pointer was flashing a cold light in the sun. There was also a thick letter next to it. On the envelope was Jonathan's familiar handwriting. I didn't even open the letter, but just took a look at the pocket watch. It used to represent sweetness and promises, but now it only bore the marks of betrayal and pain. No matter how well it is repaired, the cracks will always exist. I picked up a pen and wrote, "Reject and return" on the receipt of the package, then resealed it and handed it back to the postman. The past is like the death of yesterday. I will never look back, but will face the east wind of the times and move forward all the way.